The autumn air in the Bronx always tasted of damp iron and rotting leaves by the time the sun dipped below the tree line. At Woodlawn Cemetery, the transition from day to night wasn't a gentle fading. It was a heavy, sudden drop. By 6 p.m., the gates were bolted. The caretakers had gone home, and the 400 acres of ornate Victorian mausoleums and winding gravel paths belonged entirely to the dead. And, according to the local rumors, to the old man. Marcus didn't believe in ghosts. As a historical restoration specialist hired to assess weathering damage on some of Woodlawn's oldest monuments, he believed in stone, mortar, and time. When his supervisor mentioned the strict rule, never, under any circumstances, linger near Frankie's castle after dusk, Marcus had simply laughed off as a myth designed to keep teenagers and trespassers away. On a chilly Friday evening in late October, Marcus stayed late. He was deep into documenting the intricate carvings of a 19th century family vault near the central ridge, relying solely on the bright beam of his heavy-duty LED headlamp. The silence in the cemetery was absolute, broken only by the distant, muted hum of West 233rd Street traffic. Then, the ambient temperature plummeted. It wasn't a gradual chill. It was as if someone had suddenly opened the door to an industrial freezer. Marcus's breath plumed instantly into thick white fog. His phone, resting on the stone ledge beside him, flashed a rapid succession of battery error warnings before going completely black. A sharp click echoed through the quiet air. Click, click. Marcus froze, his pen hovering over his clipboard. He turned slowly toward the grand, turreted structure known locally as Frankie's Castle, an elaborate Gothic revival mausoleum looming like a dark crown against a moonlit sky. Cutting through the thick shadows between the weeping willows was a narrow, wobbling beam of light. Squinting against the glare, Marcus stepped out from the recess of the vault. "Hey!" he called out, his voice sharp and loud in the dead stillness. "You shouldn't be in here. The grounds closed hours ago." The light stopped sweeping. A few yards away, standing rigid beside a crumbling granite headstone, was an elderly man dressed in an outdated oilskin coat that looked as though it had survived a century of northern winters. In his gloved hand, he held a heavy, vintage steel flashlight, the kind that ran on thick, archaic batteries and cast a sickly, yellowish-white glare. The old man didn't answer. Instead, he raised a heavy flashlight, pointing the beam directly at the empty, pitch-black space between two looming marble angels. Click! He flicked the light off, plunging the space into darkness, then snapped it back on. "They're coming up the ridge!" the old man suddenly screamed, his voice cracking with a frantic, desperate terror that bounced harshly off the stone monuments. "Keep the lanterns covered. Don't let them see the glass." Marcus blinked, taking a cautious step forward. "Mister, are you lost? Let me help you to the gate." Without warning, the old man whirled around. The beam of his vintage flashlight swept across the grass and caught Marcus squarely in the eyes. The light didn't feel warm or electrical. It felt impossibly cold, like a shaft of winter wind piercing straight through his retinas. Marcus raised a hand to shield his face, stumbling backward against the granite marker. When he forced his eyes open a second later, blinking away the stinging white spots in his vision, the clearing was completely empty. There was no old man, no footsteps crunching on the gravel, no flashlight beam cutting through the dark. Only the towering stone walls of Frankie's castle, standing silent under the moon, and the lingering metallic scent of ozone and bitter cold in the air. Marcus didn't bother packing his clipboard. He turned and sprinted all the way back to the main gates, the absolute conviction settling deep in his chest that some things in Woodlawn weren't history at all. They were just waiting for the sun to go down. The digital thermometer on the exterior wall of the administration office blinked erratically. 68 ring operator F, 54 ring operator F, 39 ring operator F. Then the screen died, the internal liquid crystal freezing solid in a matter of seconds. For Elena Vance, Woodlawn Senior Grounds Coordinator, the failing hardware was just another Tuesday night. It was 8:15 p.m., well past the mandated 6 p.m. lockout, and she was finishing her final inventory sweep of the Central Ridge, armed with a heavy weather-sealed parka, a tactical radio, and an unshakable skepticism born from 10 years of working around ancient stone. She walked the labyrinthine avenues flanked by towering granite mausoleums. The wind had died down entirely, smelled intensely of crushed ivy, wet limestone, and something sharp and metallic, like the ozone trailing severe lightning strike. As she passed the sprawling Belmont family vault, the temperature dropped so violently that her breath instantly plumed into thick, heavy white clouds. A sharp pain bloomed behind her ears as the barometric pressure seemed to collapse around her. "Base, this is Elena," she muttered into her handheld radio, her fingers stiffening inside her gloves. "I'm hitting a severe cold pocket near the central ridge. Check the HVAC logs for the south utility line. Something's venting." Static hissed from the speaker. Then, underneath the electronic white noise, came a distinct, wet scraping sound, like a heavy iron door dragging across gravel. Elena stopped, her boots crunching softly on the frost-laced asphalt. She clicked her high-intensity flashlight on, sweeping the narrow beam across the dark gaps between the monuments. The marble angels and neo-Gothic chapels stood silent, draped in deep, impenetrable shadows. Then, the whispers began. It didn't sound like it was coming from a single source. It echoed off the polished granite facades, bouncing to the alleyways of the dead in an overlapping chorus of hushed, hurried voices. "Did you lock the iron latch? They're walking the perimeter again. Hide the silver. Don't let the fog reach the steps." Elena spun around, her heart slamming against her ribs. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice cutting sharply through the cold air. "Show yourselves. The grounds are closed. If you're trespassing, I'm calling park security right now." The whispering abruptly cut off. In its place came a sound far worse. The sound of rapid, barefoot running across frozen grass, moving parallel to her position just behind a row of towering boxwood hedges. Elena raised her flashlight, tracking the movement. The beam sliced through the dark, illuminating frost-covered grass and empty air. Yet the sound of heavy, breathless panting kept pace with her, just out of sight behind the stone wall. She reached for her radio, desperate for dispatch, but the device emitted a long, high-pitched squeal before the battery indicator blinked red and went entirely dark. The temperature plunged further, dropping below freezing in an instant. Frost crystallized rapidly across the lenses of her glasses and the metal casing of her flashlight. The beam flickered once, twice, and died, plunging her into absolute pitch-black darkness. In the suffocating cold and dark, right beside her ear, a voice whispered so clearly that she could feel the icy draft of breath against her cheek. "You shouldn't have stayed past the bells. Elena, they lock us in, but they lock you in with us." Elena didn't hesitate. She threw herself forward in the direction of the main road, her boots sliding wildly on the ice gravel, running blindly into the night as the shadows behind her shifted and whispered in the dark. While New York City has several historic and heavily fabled burial grounds, one of the most prominent historic cemeteries widely recognized for its eerie reputation, high-profile permanent residence, and strict sunset closure policies, is Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx. Location: address, Webster Avenue and East 233rd Street, Bronx, New York 10470. Why it is haunted and why people avoid it after dark. Sprawling across 400 acres, Woodlawn opened in 1863 and holds over 300,000 souls. Locals and paranormal investigators steer clear after hours due to several persistent legends. The Phantom Flashlight Man, one of the most famous recurring apparitions reported on the grounds, is a mysterious old man holding a flashlight. Witnesses claim to see him roaming near historic structures like Frankie's Castle, flashing his light into the dark and occasionally shouting or yelling into the empty air before vanishing. Whispers in cold spots. Visitors and groundskeepers have reported sudden, unexplainable drops in temperature alongside disembodied whispering voices echoing between the grand stone mausoleums when no one else is around. Strict hours. Like most NYC cemeteries, gates lock tight at dusk, typically around 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., and security patrols aggressively enforce trespassing laws, contributing to the local superstition that anyone lingering after dark risks more than just a fine. Who is famous in the cemetery? Woodlawn is a final resting place for a massive roster of legendary historical figures, artists, writers, and musicians, including Duke Ellington, legendary jazz composer and pianist; Miles Davis, groundbreaking jazz trumpeter, only in your state; Herman Melville, author of Moby Dick; only in your state. Nellie Bly, pioneering investigative journalist. Irving Berlin, iconic American composer. F.W. Woolworth and J.C. Penney, department store magnates, only in your state.